Hey everybody, this is Chad Campbell, Certified Functional Medicine Provider. And today we're coming back for an update, and I am super stoked and excited to introduce my good friend, Dr. Sheila Kilbane. She is an integrated pediatrician, author, speaker, just amazing woman. But first, before we get into this, I want to give everybody an update on all of the new things that have been coming out. You guys know here where we are in Globe, in Arizona at least, they did go ahead and shut all the bars and restaurants, and you know, it's starting to get a lot more real around here than it was before. Our office wants to thank everybody for all their prayers and the food that you're bringing, the masks that you're bringing for us. It's not only needed, but it's also such an encouragement for all of us to see the community getting behind us. So we want to thank everybody for that. I do want to bring a couple of new things up. One new update is that they're showing that for those people who develop, remember we talked about back in the beginning of Wuhan, they had 10% of the people actually presented with GI symptoms first. So what they've shown is that if you develop GI symptoms first, then you develop the fever and the cough, that there's a much higher risk of complications. So I'm saying that to say this: everybody keeps thinking that COVID-19 and this stuff is all about just fever, cough, shortness of breath, chest tightness. If you're getting the diarrhea symptoms or the GI symptoms, watch it, okay? Just monitor it, and if you start developing more and isolate yourself, if you start getting more and more symptoms, don't dismiss it. Make sure that you get checked out for it. Another new finding is the neurological findings. They're seeing that a lot of people who are developing this are losing their smell and taste before they actually develop the other symptoms. We've had 2 cases in our office that we're waiting for testing to come back on. One, a lady just presented with Bell's palsy with no other symptoms. And today I saw a lady who developed complete right lateral gaze. So she lost, her eye will not go lateral. So she has complete paralysis of the muscles on one eye. And they will be tested. If all the other testing that we've done on them comes back negative, then we'll test them for that as well. One super concerning thing was before in the beginning, they said that once you get this, you are now good. You're not going to get this anymore. Well, they've shown some cases in Wuhan now that they've actually had re-inoculation. They actually did develop it again. But remember, all this stuff is just constantly moving and changing, and we don't know what the pattern is. Just like they said here in the United States, it's acting different than it was in Italy and Wuhan with hitting our 20 to 45 range people, and that wasn't what was happening over there. So it's really exciting to hear them start talking about looking at our country as a region-based rather than the whole country-based. So what they're going to do is start looking at region areas and figuring out what's best for those areas rather than how to address the entire country with the same plan. So that's super exciting because you cannot address any disease or illness as a universal disease or illness. It's just like an integrative medicine, functional medicine, with Dr. Kilbane and I both. We look at the person and address it with the person, not just based off of a universal treatment plan. And the other last thing I want to bring up before we dive into Dr. Kilbane is testing. There's sort of a lot of false negatives, and this is not to create fear. This is, if you start developing symptoms, I want you to demand, when you get tested, a good test. Because if anybody's ever had a throat culture or a flu swab, you know that those things are not very pleasant. But they have shown that some people are having to get tested 7 times in order to get that positive test. And most of the time, it's because of the way that they did it. They didn't do it right. They didn't do it good enough because they're concerned they're going to hurt you or that you're not going to like it. This should hurt. This should not feel good. It should be very uncomfortable. So when you're getting tested, if you have to, make sure that they're really getting in there and checking it out. And what they have found is that in some studies, this has been 2 studies, they have found that you are still passing the virus, still shedding that virus in the stool after those tests are negative. And people who are on steroids actually shed it 10 days longer. So that's concerning for the bathrooms and everything else if people aren't washing their hands about how this thing can continue to shed and continue to be a problem for all of us. So with that update, and we will continue to do these updates, I want to introduce everybody to my good friend, Dr. Sheila Kilbane. She is a certified pediatrician who I got to train with and got to know very well during our integrative fellowship with Andrew Weil. She uses traditional medicine as well as integrative medicine to help families find the root cause of their child's illnesses. She walks families through her 7-step process to significantly improve or to even get rid of the illnesses such as colic and eczema, recurrent ear and sinus infections, asthma, allergies, stomach and GI issues like constipation, abdominal pain, reflux. Those things that our kids continuously are experiencing, this is what she loves to specialize in and to help us in. So I would love to introduce everybody to Dr. Kilbane, and would love for her to tell us about what she does and her protocols, and then she and I are going to get into what we can do to help our children through this COVID-19 time. Dr.
Yes,
Kilbane.
absolutely. Thank you, Chad.
Hello.
And you all in Globe, and I've been to Globe once. We came and visited the clinic, and you have a sweet little town. And do you know how lucky you all are to have this fella there in your medical community? Oh my gosh. If we lived even remotely in the same area, we would be working together. I just love this gentleman, and he's brilliant, and what an incredible clinician. So thank you. I'm super excited to be on today, and what a good service to answer these questions, because there's so much. The internet is all over the place and everything is changing really quickly, and that was such a beautiful, succinct summary of what's happening right now and how things are changing. And so what I would love to talk about today, because it's always one of the things we practice integrative medicine, because when something like this happens, we know that with our family, with our patients, our immune systems are supported, and we have our systemic inflammation to a minimum. So that allows our immune system to work as optimally as it can. So that's why, you know, us integrative practitioners didn't get too excited about having to change a lot with our patients who are cognizant about nutrition and some foundational supplements. So this is an entirely different ballgame. So there are a few additional supplements that I have been recommending with my families, and I'll walk you through some of these things that I have been talking to my families about. And I know this is what Chad does with a lot of the families in his practice. So I'm gonna switch screens. I'm gonna share my screen here. And can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, great. So I have a 7-step process that I go through, and I'll go into more in depth, especially in gut health and some of these other areas. But basically, the way that I talk about this is we want to have an assessment. So we want to make sure that we know where we are. So we never go anywhere in our car if we don't know where we are, so that we know where we're going. And so the first thing is we want to have a really good assessment. The second thing is we want understanding that concept that inflammation is illness. So we all can handle inflammation to a certain extent, and we need it to heal a cut. We need it to heal an inflamed ankle, But a lot of times, if we're eating a lot of fast food and a lot of sugar, processed foods, our inflammation can be pretty high. So that's the second concept. The third are the triggers of inflammation, and I'll go through those in a minute. And then the fourth is gut health. And then I have just some food phases that I walk families through. We won't get into the depth of those, but I'll go through a little bit of that. And then I talk about supplements and then that roadmap. And so right now with this COVID-19, I think having that roadmap of what are we doing? We're all in the house and it's a different, we don't have routines. I am somebody I do a lot better when I have a lot of structure. And so now it's, and I'm still seeing patients over virtually, but it's a little challenging. And I have finally decided I have to get up and get dressed every day, even if I'm just, because I'm doing visits. So I need to do more than just put a top on that I can go on video with. So they're keeping our routines and making the most of it. I'm also loving this and walking out in nature because I'm not running around. I'm not running to yoga. I'm not running here and there. So I think this is a really great opportunity for a lot of us to connect more deeply with our families and take a little bit more time to cook, to talk to each other, to connect. So I'm just going to go through a little bit of this and then I'll come back on the screen. But this is the concept of inflammation and illness. And I think this is really important right now with what's happening, because what happens with the COVID is that our body, it's called a cytokine storm. So we get a lot of inflammation, and that's why we want to keep our cup so that it's only a fourth or maybe a half full. But if we're running around with a lot of sugar, processed packaged foods, our cup of water, our cup of inflammation is overflowing. And that's when we have symptoms. So that might be runny nose, a lot of skin rashes, constipation or loose stools, bumps on the cheeks, bumps on the back of the arms. And so when we really look at nutrition and start to decrease our inflammation, that cup of inflammation goes down. So that, say we do get exposed to a virus, whether it's the flu or the cold or maybe the COVID, our body has a little bit of a reserve to handle a certain amount of inflammation. And, hopefully you would be one of the people who doesn't get as sick from this if you do get it. And we do know that about 70 to 80% of Americans will likely end up getting it. So the other thing too, I keep talking about is let's try to prolong this so that we don't, if we are going to get it, we get it much later when we have more clinical trials and more information about what our best practices to help people get through it. So now I'll just go through the 5 triggers of inflammation. So these are the things that can create inflammation. Or if you have a child, for example, who has eczema and you just cannot seem to get rid of it. So these are things that can trigger illnesses, and it doesn't mean that these are going to trigger things in everyone. It just means if you have something going on, these things can trigger illness. So it's food, environmental allergies, environmental toxins, infectious diseases, and then stress. And stress can be physical or emotional. And so we all know now, and Chad asked me to, talk a little bit more also about stress and what happens. And I think because this is such an important topic, let me switch back. So can you see me when I have sharing my screen?
Yeah, sometimes it comes and goes. But yeah, one of the concerns with all this time is that where everybody is now sent home and isolated at home, that the stress in the parents, that the kids are going to start picking this up. And we know that in kids, some of the big warning signs that they're starting to be stressed is changing their appetite, changing their sleep, that those are some big signs for parents to start to pick up on. And so some cool ways that you can help guide everybody with how to keep this stress down in these kids and help reduce this stuff.
Yes. So one of the big things, a friend of mine who teaches mindfulness, and she's an author, Kristen Oliver, she always says, kids feel what we feel, not what we say. And, people parents will say, well, we go behind doors to fight, and that's one of the things I even talk about. If you're worried about something, talk it through with your kids. That is how we build resiliency. And they don't need to know the numbers of the COVID and all that kind of thing, but sit down, have that conversation with them. Yep, this is happening. It's like the flu. You maybe say it's just a little bit worse than the flu. So we are going to be very careful. We're washing hands. And so that they can see you showing your tools of how to manage stress. And then this is where a little bit of discipline for the adults. Get off the internet, give yourself a certain amount of time. Maybe you're going to do a check-in update for 30 minutes. And then if you have to work or do other things, because you can really get sucked in, and especially late at night. And we want to be doing other things with your kids. Can we play board games, cook, have them help you create a menu for the week? How fun would that be for them to get to pick, okay, tonight we want to do taco night, Tuesday we're going to do salad and burgers, and Wednesday. So and if you're like Chad, right, you'll have your own bison burgers that you would be or not bison, your deer, right? Your venison.
All of it.
Both. All of them. So you get your omega-3 fats from your wild game that you're eating, and then you'll have your vegetables, and maybe you can do more of fruits and things like that for dessert. So doing those things, enlisting the kids in helping you do those things. One of the things, the Montessori is just a method of teaching. Most people have heard of it. And one of the Montessori ways is don't do for your children what they can do for themselves. And it takes a whole lot longer to get anything done. But if they can help chop things up, if they can set the table, have them doing so that they have their chores that they're doing every day, because that also helps them to feel good. And then it will help you out as well. And, sitting down as a family and having them be part of the decision making. One of the things Chad and I learned while we were doing our integrative medicine fellowship is it's called patient-centered interviewing. And it's where we couldn't tell the patient what to do. We had to enlist them in helping us create their plan. And it was hysterical. I don't know if you remember this, but we broke into groups of 3. And before the end of it, we all started telling each other what to do. And we're like, hold on, because we all think we know what everybody else wants to do. And I'm very sensitive to this in my practice. And I always tell the kids, I say, not many of us like to be told what to do. So I'm going to explain to you why we're doing this, and you're going to get to decide. And I do this when I know the kids are going to be cooperative, but they're going to get to help decide when things happen. Are we going to go off of dairy? Are we going to take artificial dyes out of their diet? And if so, we're going to plan it around a time where there isn't a birthday or there isn't a holiday coming up, so that they have as much control over that as possible. And in this situation where the kids aren't getting to talk to their friends, that's going to be another big thing, to have them give them some control over their schedule. And then just a couple of other.
Sheila, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
I saw one thing where they were talking about how humming helps actually prevent the viruses and illnesses from constantly the vibration of humming. And I was thinking that would be such a fun thing to do with my kids at nighttime, where everybody just starts humming. I mean, it sounds so stupid, but just humming together to try to help to also release not only the stress, because I think about the laugh therapy through our fellowship, but not just the stress, but also just with the viral illnesses themselves.
Yeah, and you could even do, how when you hum and kids let you, they go, and then you hit they could do that, and they could even do that as they're, before they're getting ready to go to bed. You could definitely do that. Yeah. And massage, having them massage you and then you massage them, the research on massage is very, very good, that it decreases your cortisol levels. And that's what we want to do. We want to keep our cortisol levels low. The other is breathing. So and I can share with you, I have a little YouTube video where I teach kids how to do alternate nasal breathing. You just go.
Yep.
And like right now, even as you're listening to this, everybody just take a big deep breath in. And you realize how we stop breathing during the day. And I know people will be watching this at all different times, but tomorrow morning, I'm doing a little webinar with a friend of mine who teaches mindfulness. We're going to do a little meditation for the kids, and then I'm going to do a little Q&A for the kids. So that is something that, and I will post the resource somewhere, but that's something that is just a nice thing, breathing. And if you all do any yoga and just movement, really just getting your bodies moving and getting outside, Epsom salt baths are phenomenal at relaxing. And even if it's the adults just doing the Epsom salt baths, and I have you do like a good 3 to 4 cups of Epsom salt in the bath, and that can be a really good stress reliever and help you sleep, especially if there are any trouble sleeping. Epsom salt is a magnesium salt, but that just can be very helpful. So I hope that makes sense of good things that you can do to kind of help relieve the stress. But I don't think we have to hide everything from kids. I think it's important that they learn tools that you're using so that they can help build their own resiliency. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Make sure I have this up. And we'll talk about gut health. So one of the big things that we talk about in integrative medicine is how healthy our gut bacteria is. So we have more bacteria in our gut than we have cells in our body. And I always liken it to soil. If we have really rich, fertile soil, we're going to have a lot of plants growing. It's going to be teeming with little microorganisms. It's going to have worms, and that is going to fertilize itself, and it's going to create the things like nothing man-made does the same thing that a worm does in soil to aerate it, to bring in more water. So it's extremely important that we have this nice fertile soil. So I compare that to a desert landscape where it's dry, we don't have the nutrients that we need, and we just aren't going to have the diversity of life that we have in a nice fertile soil. So what are the things, a lot of different things that we do on a day-to-day basis can impact our gut health. So, and it always goes back to food. If we're doing a lot of artificial dyes and colors and processed packaged foods and fast foods, that's not going to promote the health of the good bacteria. Whereas if we're staying hydrated, and that's the number one thing, like the first thing you do if you look at those two pictures are what is the difference? We need to drink enough water, and a good, just nice filtered water is perfect. And the rule of thumb for kids is you want to drink about half their weight in ounces per day. So a 40-pound child would drink about 20 ounces a day. And it's interesting, if you look at these contributing factors that impact our microbiome, hand sanitizers and strong bleach cleansing agents, we need to use those right now. So we're just going to let that, but that's where we're going to do a probiotic and fermented foods like kimchi, kombucha, and those are going to help to replenish our good bacteria. And then we want to be doing fiber. So we have fiber in vegetables. We have chia seed, flaxseed, hemp seed have a great amount of fiber in them. And then we want to be looking at foods that have prebiotics, things like onions, bananas, garlic. So those are all going to help to feed our good, healthy bacteria. And this is I always show this picture this is one of my patients from many years ago, and it's difficult to see. Let me make it a little bit bigger. But he came to me with tics, and you can see he had tics so bad that he pulled a muscle in his neck. And you can see how pale, he's got the red circles under his eyes. He doesn't really have a clear look in his eyes. And then through nutrition and getting his gut healthy, you can see how beautifully clear his skin is. He's got a much more clear look in his eyes, better school photographer, and he's a year older, but it's just, that's a gut that is absorbing nutrients, and that's a really strong, robust immune system. So that's just a good visual example of what happens when we're doing food that's right for our system. And what I do, so I go through 4 phases of nutrition, and I do the first thing I do is just a little mini cleanse, and I'll talk you through that. I think that's the biggest thing, I think, for people who are listening today. Phase 2, if we still have more issues, we talk about eliminating dairy, and phase 3 is removing gluten if needed. And then phase 4, like if a child is still having a lot of physical symptoms, that's when it's time to seek out someone like Chad or myself to help sort through the problem. So what I do, this is just a quick little visual. So day 1, and you can do this while you're at home. So day 1 is you'll just cut out sugary drinks. And you could also do these, it could take 3 days, it could take a week, but I like having one thing to focus on every day. So you take out sugary drinks, add in filtered water. Day number 2, take out artificial dyes, add in green leafy vegetables. Day number 3, packaged snacks, and then you'll add in real food, fruit, nuts, seeds. Day 4, refined sugar, things like donuts and cakes and cookies. And then again, adding in naturally sweet foods like fruits, vegetables, berries. And then day number 5, processed meat. So things like hot dogs, deli meats, those things with the artificial dyes and colors and not artificial colors, but those processed meats are not easy for our body to process. And then we just want to add in clean proteins like the venison or bison or organic chicken, turkey, things like that. And then the day number 6 would be processed fat. So that's most of the things that you would get at fast food restaurants. And a lot of restaurants they cook with vegetable oils that have omega-6 and 9 fats that are pro-inflammatory. So we want to be doing more of the omega-3 fats, things like cold water sockeye salmon, chia seed, flax seed, hemp seed, blueberries. So this is just a little quick way that you can all do while you're at home, and you can help boost your child's immune system and help their gut health, so that if they do get sick, hopefully they only are sick for a couple of days and then they recover quickly. And these are just ideas of things, that you can do, things that you can, foods that you can add in. So those are my big takeaways. And then when I'm talking about foundational supplements, and I'll just review these, Chad, I'm sure you have a similar list, but what I do is I use a probiotic, and I generally start supplements in kids one at a time for 5 days before starting the next one, so that we make sure if they have a reaction to anything, we know what they've reacted to. And I love a company called Transformation Enzymes, and I use their Planidophilus is the probiotic. And I have a handout also that I can email Chad.
I use Planidophilus as well.
Awesome.
And then probiotics for the adults.
Yes. So digestive enzymes, if your child is generally healthy, you don't necessarily need to do a digestive enzyme. But then I'll do an omega-3 fat. And there are many different forms. Just this Carlson's is one nice brand. Barlean's is one that tastes really good if your child is more of a picky eater. And then vitamin D, I use a company called Orthomolecular, and it's a vitamin D3 plus K2. And for kids 1 year and up, I would just do one single drop. It's not a full dropper. And then I love a whole food supplement called Juice Plus. That's one that you have to order through someone. I don't know if Chad carries that, but you can also, Greens First is another one. Okay. And then Seeking Health makes a nice multivitamin. Chad, do you have a multi that you recommend for kids?
I don't have one multi that I use. No.
Yeah, it's it always depends on different situations.
Yeah.
So I won't get into, we talked a little bit about magnesium, but the other things that I do in terms of when kids are starting to get sick, I have my supplements that I will use. These have shifted a little bit because of what's happening. So the big things that I recommend that we add in with this COVID are vitamin C, and it's hard to get vitamin C right now. So if you have some at home, use what you have. For the younger kids, it would be 500 milligrams twice a day. You know, as we get into like 12 and up, you could do even 1,000 milligrams twice a day. Then zinc is another one. And with zinc, you want to be careful when we're just replacing a single mineral. So again, for the younger kids, you could do about 15 milligrams, and I would maybe 2 and up. You could do 15 milligrams daily, but I wouldn't do it longer than 6 to 8 weeks unless you had a practitioner who was checking your blood levels. And same thing with the adults, is you can do it during this acute phase while we're getting through this COVID, but you don't necessarily want it. That's not something you do every day for the next year. And always, these are just what I use with my patients. Always you want to check with your own doctor before starting anything, especially with the kiddos. Do you have any, and I do use an immunoglobulin from a company called Mega IgG, and that is it's basically, I always describe it, it's basically like colostrum, but it's concentrated and put into a capsule. And that I have a website where, you know, people can purchase supplements. Chad, you probably have, I don't know if you have people call your office or if you have a website.
Both.
So perfect.
Yeah.
So lot of resources, because a lot of the supplements that Chad and I use are ones that you can't go into Target or even a Whole Food store. Usually most of the ones that we use will be ones that you get from that only practitioners have access to.
Yeah, so the vitamin C, what I want to put in there would be, you know, for adults, you're looking at doing 3,000 milligrams a day is fine, and you can continue to increase that until you call it GI tolerance, where if you start getting the diarrhea, you need to back off to the dose before that. One caveat with that is if you do have a problem with corn, most of those things are made with corn, so you've got to be careful on the type of vitamin C you use if you are sensitive to corn or not. So just be careful with that part.
Yeah,
the vitamin C is hard to get, and so it's kind of like, well, what's the good things? Everybody thinks about oranges, you know, but freeze dried peppers, for some reason, maybe you know, I don't know why, but the vitamin C content goes up when you freeze peppers.
I don't know. I would think just because it concentrates it, but I don't.
And then guava fruit and chives. Those might be some things that'll be easier to get if you want to add some of that stuff. And the zinc, definitely. In adults, you're going up to 30, but it's not something you want to continue to do because it competes with the copper as well. So then you start developing problems with that. So if you're doing it for a period of time, not forever, but a period of time, then that's what I'm recommending as well with that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Very good.
So can I ask you some stuff on? Let's get into.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So have you seen in some of your children that you get to work with differences in their health? Because my big thing with all this is to stick with, no matter what, the supplements, as you and I recommend, the supplements are not where we start. We always start with, let's get to the whole food during this. And this is such an amazing time for the kids to cook with the parents and start to explore new foods because they're at home together for so long. What about, have you seen where kids don't want to eat those vegetables? They don't want to eat the fish. They don't want to eat the greens. Them actually preparing the foods themselves and then eating what they prepare. So starting out small, but then letting them grow into that. Have you seen your kids do much better with that?
Oh, 100%, absolutely. And if it goes back to them being a part of it, and they're going to have a little bit more ownership. And you know how fun it is to eat something that you've cooked. It's also, right now I wouldn't take the kids to the store with you, but that's another thing, or a farmer's market. But if you can do that, I've had kids, because what I'll have is the health coach in my practice, she'll meet the family at the farmer's market, and then she'll have kids who won't eat this stuff at home, and they'll pick it up at the farmer's market and start eating it. So it's amazing. And also sometimes when there's a little group pressure, if everybody at home is eating it, then that may be a little bit of a better way to get them to start eating it. And if you're somewhere that you can have a little garden, or even grow a few herbs or something, that the kids can be involved in that I've also seen that, where the kids will pick lettuce out of the garden and eat it, but they wouldn't have touched it on their plate. Right. So that's a great point, Chad.
That's good. And everybody's like, well, how does this have to do with this whole COVID, and how does this whole thing have to do with this coronavirus? And it's all about how good can you tolerate whatever you're exposed to. And if your body is broken down and you're not able to absorb those nutrients, or you're so inflamed that your body can't handle it, you're going to be a much higher risk of not only acquiring it, but then transmitting it to the people that you definitely don't want it to. So for your children, this is that perfect time to help reduce the inflammation of the school lunches, reduce the drive-through McDonald's that everybody does sometimes when we're rushing, or the Taco Bell, or whatever it may be, and try to get them to say, hey, what color do you want to try today? Do we want to try the greens, or the reds, or the yellows? And they get to choose that, and we put that down and let them try it. Give them the whole day. Don't make it just as one meal. Let's put it out on a plate and say, let's try it. And they're like, no, I don't want to try it right now. All right, well, let's try it in an hour. We'll try again. And you just keep giving them that opportunity to get exposed to it and try these new things like this. And that vitamin D, getting them outside in the sun, it's just like, get them outside and play around your house. I did have a person ask, can I get the COVID-19 from, if my neighbor has it and I'm outside, will I be able to get it at my house? No, you're not going to get it at your house. Keep the 6-foot rule. Keep your kids in your backyard, and they will be fine. I do want to say something that was just dropped me today. Okay, with this whole thing and the stress with kids and adults and my own children, I asked everybody, what are you doing with your time? What are you guys doing for fun? How are you? Because I'm trying to see what other people are doing so that I can pass that on to everybody else. And I was talking to an 84-year-old woman on the phone, doing a telemedicine visit with her today. And I said, so what are you and your husband doing for fun? And she said, falling in love all over again.
Oh my.
It was like the coolest thing in the world. She and her husband now, no outside things, are just talking about memories, about each other, things they've experienced in life together. And it's such an amazing thing that we can do with our kids. Hey guys, remember last summer? Remember last week? Remember yesterday? And just have fun and laugh together and just enjoy this time, because you're not going to change it. You got to enjoy this time together and be able to work on these small little things to help improve the relationships and the health for every second that we get to do it.
Yes, it's one of those things. I have a lot of friends who are health coaches who studied through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and how they learn our primary nutrition are our relationships, and then our secondary nutrition is our food. And I think this is one of those huge times this is when this comes into play. And I think there are a couple of other things. One of the visits I did today, what the mom did, the mom is a child psychologist, and she dropped walkie-talkies off at two of the neighbors so that the kids could all stay in contact, and then they go out in their driveway and they talk by the walkie-talkies. I thought that was brilliant. And then they're not on electronics. Right. And then the other thing is Zoom right now. Zoom has been incredible. I think they gave accounts to all the schools across the country for free, but you could get a free Zoom account, and then you have, I think, up to 40 minutes, and I don't know how many people, but like my family, I have a pretty big family. And so we'll get on. It was one of my niece's birthdays, I don't know, last Sunday. So we all got on Zoom. We sang her happy birthday. We all chatted. I mean, we were laughing hysterically. So it's a good way. We don't want to be on too long. You don't want to stay in the electronics too long, but I think that's a really cute way. And also for the kids, you know, especially if grandparents are normally a big part of your life and you're having to stay sequestered from them for both your sakes. You know, the grandparents are wanting to be with the kids. And so if they can just get, you know, a few minutes in several times a week, that might be healthy for both of them.
Right. That's awesome. So, Dr. Kilbane, can you please tell everybody how they can find out more about you, your webinars coming up? How can they research to be able to join that community to help with their kids' health for future stuff as well, besides just the COVID-19?
Yeah, so my website is SheilaKilbane.com. It's SheilaKilbane.com. And you can just, if you go in there and sign up, there's a free download, but if you sign up for that download, then you'll be put on our email list, and then you'll get all the information of when we have videos coming out. And then we'll have a section on the website where we will put these videos, the Q&As that I have been doing about the COVID, and, you know, some of the blogs that I have. And then I have a Facebook page at Sheila Kilbane MD, and we always put updates there. And then Instagram is also Sheila Kilbane MD. So those are, and I have an online course. It's right on my website if you go to online courses. And it will be, I have a book coming out, but it won't be, and I just have I'm super excited because it will come out in 2021, but by the end of this, and what I just showed you is that's part of what will be in the book. So I'm extremely excited for that. So
well, thank you for the preview.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will post on our website on Redesign You as well as Hope Family Care, Dr. Kilbane's website, and some resources that she's provided for everybody. And I'm going to continue to do these updates. I will do an update for everybody on the whole COVID-19 probably tomorrow as well. We wanted to try to focus on the kids as much as we could to try to give them the best option through this whole thing, and give you opportunities to try to do these fun things with your kids. Do you have anything that you'd like to close out with, Sheila?
I think that knowing how big the mind-body connection is, if you just know that your body is strong and state it, when you wake up every day with your kids, we have such strong immune systems. Our bodies are so strong, and just saying it every single day, I think that, and being grateful, if you pray or if you, however you show gratitude, just saying that every day, I think I think that will actually enhance your immune system.
Can't say it any better. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for joining us, and until we meet again, thank you.
All right, thank you.